The rain had started just as the private jet touched down, thin silver lines slashing across the runway lights. Daniel Laurent rarely came home early. As the CEO of a global tech empire often compared to giants like Apple Inc. and Amazon, his schedule was engineered down to the minute: board meetings in Singapore, investor calls in London, charity galas in New York. Tonight, however, a violent storm over the Atlantic had grounded connecting flights and forced his final meeting to be postponed. For the first time in months, he found himself driving through the iron gates of his estate before sunset. The mansion stood quiet beneath the gray sky, its tall windows glowing faintly against the mist. Normally, the house would hum with quiet efficiency, staff moving discreetly across polished floors, the distant clink of china from the kitchen, soft instrumental music drifting from hidden speakers. But tonight, something felt different. Still, heavy. Daniel stepped out of the car without waiting for the driver. The scent of wet earth filled the air as rain dotted his tailored coat. He loosened his tie while climbing the marble steps, rehearsing in his mind how he would surprise Olivia. She was 7 months pregnant. The doctor had insisted she avoid stress. Daniel had promised he would slow down, that he would be present for every appointment from now on. He hadn't kept that promise. Work had a way of swallowing him whole. Deals didn't wait. Markets didn't sleep. Investors demanded attention. He had told himself he was doing it all for their future, for their child's security. But somewhere between quarterly reports and international conferences, he had begun missing moments that could never be bought back. He pushed the heavy oak doors open. The foyer lights flickered warmly across the marble floor. His footsteps echoed louder than usual. "Olivia," he called gently, setting his briefcase on the console table. No answer. He frowned. Usually, she would meet him halfway down the staircase, smiling softly despite the fatigue that pregnancy brought. Even when she was upset, she never ignored him. He moved farther inside, removing his coat and draping it over a chair. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was tense, like the air before lightning strikes. Then he heard it. A faint, broken sound drifting down the hallway. Crying. His chest tightened instantly. Without thinking, he followed the sound past framed wedding photos, past the nursery door that was still half painted in soft cream and pale gold. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. Through the narrow gap, he saw her. Olivia sat on the edge of the bed, shoulders trembling, one hand resting protectively over her belly. Her long hair fell loosely around her face, hiding part of it, but he could see enough to know she had been crying for a while. "Olivia," his voice cracked despite himself. She startled at the sound and looked up. Her eyes were red, mascara faintly smudged beneath them. "Daniel, you're home." The way she said it, surprised, almost unsure, stabbed at him. He crossed the room quickly and knelt in front of her. "Of course I'm home. What's wrong? Is it the baby? Are you feeling pain? Should we call the doctor?" She shook her head too fast. "No, the baby's fine." Relief washed through him for a brief second, but it was quickly replaced by confusion. "Then why are you crying?" She glanced away, blinking back fresh tears. "It's nothing." He took her hands gently but firmly. "Don't do that. Don't shut me out." A long silence stretched between them. The rain tapped harder against the windows, filling the space with a restless rhythm. "You wouldn't understand," she whispered finally. His heart sank. "Try me." Her fingers trembled as she reached for her phone on the bedside table. She unlocked it slowly, as if the device weighed more than it should, and handed it to him without meeting his eyes. Daniel looked down at the screen. An unknown number. A message thread. He began reading. "You think he loves you? He's never home. Do you know where he was last weekend? Ask him about the woman in Paris. You and your baby are just a distraction." His grip on the phone tightened. "What is this?" His voice was dangerously calm. "They started a week ago," Olivia said softly. "I thought it was spam at first. Or some kind of sick joke." He scrolled further. There were photos. The first one made his stomach drop. It was him in Paris, seated at a rooftop restaurant. Across from him sat a woman leaning forward, her hand resting near his on the table. The image had been taken from a distance, the angle intimate, suggestive. That was a client, Daniel said immediately. A potential investor. There were 3 other executives at the table. They're just cropped out. Olivia's lips trembled. "I know you travel. I know you meet women for business. But this," she swallowed. "It doesn't look like business." "It is," he insisted. "I swear to you." She stood up slowly, pacing the room with one hand pressed to her lower back. "You missed my last doctor appointment. You said you'd call, but you didn't. I waited in that room alone while other husbands held their wives' hands." Guilt pierced him. "I got stuck in meetings." There's always a meeting, she said, not angrily, but wearily. There's always something more important. He stood too, closing the distance between them. Nothing is more important than you. But it doesn't feel that way, she whispered. The words hung in the air, heavier than the rain outside. She looked up at him then, her vulnerability raw. When the messages kept coming, when they sent more photos, I didn't want to believe them. But doubt is a cruel thing, Daniel. Once it's planted, it grows. He scrolled again. There were other images, him entering hotels for conferences, greeting colleagues at airports. All framed to imply secrecy. I would never betray you, he said quietly. Never. Before she could answer, her phone buzzed in his hand. Both of them froze. Another message from the same number. Daniel opened it. He's home early tonight, isn't he? Good. Now check his study. A chill spread through him. Olivia's hand flew to her mouth. How would they know you're home? That question echoed in his mind. How indeed. His arrival hadn't been scheduled. The flight change was last minute. Only a handful of people knew. This isn't random, he said slowly. Someone's watching. Fear flickered across Olivia's face. He stepped toward the door, every instinct alert. Stay here. No. Her voice was firmer now. I'm not staying alone. He hesitated, then nodded. Together, they walked down the dim hallway toward his private study. The house felt unfamiliar, as though its walls held secrets he hadn't noticed before. The study door was closed. Daniel never closed it. He felt his pulse pounding in his ears as he reached for the handle. Olivia stood just behind him, her breathing uneven but determined. The rain thundered harder against the windows as his fingers curled around the brass knob. And slowly, he turned it. The door creaked open with a slow, deliberate sound that seemed louder than it should have been. Daniel stepped into the study first, instinctively positioning himself slightly in front of Olivia. The room smelled faintly of leather and cedarwood, the familiar scent of polished bookshelves and old paper. A single desk lamp glowed near the far wall, casting a muted amber light across the mahogany desk. Everything appeared untouched at first glance, chairs aligned, documents stacked neatly, the abstract painting above the fireplace. Perfectly straight. But the air felt wrong. Daniel scanned the room carefully before taking another step. His mind, trained to analyze risk in billion-dollar negotiations, shifted into a different kind of calculation. Entry points. Cameras. Security logs. Who had access? Then he saw it. Centered on his desk, placed with deliberate precision, lay a large brown envelope. He stopped walking. Olivia's fingers curled into the back of his jacket. What is it? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he approached slowly, as though the envelope might explode if handled carelessly. There was no name written on it. No seal. Just a clean fold across the top. He picked it up. It was heavier than he expected. Inside were photographs. Dozens of them. He spread them across the desk under the lamplight. Olivia stepped closer, her breath catching sharply. Images stared back at them. Daniel exiting hotels during international conferences, shaking hands with female executives, sitting at dinner tables in dimly lit restaurants. Each photo had been carefully cropped. Every frame excluded the broader context. Assistants, board members, entire teams just outside the lens. One image showed him standing beside a well-known venture capitalist during a charity event. The angle, however, cut out the banner behind them and the crowd surrounding them. It looked intimate. Secretive. This is insane, Daniel muttered. Olivia's hand trembled as she picked up another photo. They've been following you. Yes. His voice hardened. For months, by the look of this. At the bottom of the envelope, beneath the stack, was a single typed note. She deserves to know who you really are. Olivia's eyes filled again, not with confusion this time, but anger. This isn't about truth, she said quietly. This is about destroying us. Daniel's thoughts raced. Whoever had orchestrated this knew his schedule intimately. They had access to private travel dates, hotel bookings, even small dinner meetings that were not publicly listed. He lifted one photo closer to the light. It showed him entering a hotel in New York 3 months ago. Reflected faintly in the glass behind him was a man standing several feet away. Daniel narrowed his eyes. He pulled out his phone and zoomed in on the reflection. The image sharpened just enough. A gray suit. Sharp posture. A face he knew too well. His jaw tightened. Marcus, he said under his breath. Olivia looked up. Marcus Reed. Daniel nodded slowly. Marcus Reed had once stood beside him as co-founder of their company. They had started in a cramped apartment, building software late into the night, dreaming of transforming industries. But success had changed Marcus. Reckless investments. Risky shortcuts. When one disastrous deal nearly collapsed the entire corporation, Daniel had been forced to make a choice: protect the company or protect his friend. He chose the company. Marcus had never forgiven him. He lost everything after the board removed him, Daniel said quietly. His shares, his status, even his marriage fell apart. Olivia exhaled slowly. And he blames you. He said I betrayed him. Daniel's voice was steady, but there was a flicker of old pain there. But he betrayed the company first. As if summoned by his name, Daniel's phone began to ring. Unknown number. The timing was too perfect. He looked at Olivia. She nodded once, bracing herself. Daniel answered and placed it on speaker. A familiar voice slid through the room, smooth and mocking. Good evening, Daniel. There it was. Calm, confident. What do you want, Marcus? Daniel asked evenly. Oh, don't sound so cold. I just thought your wife deserved a clearer picture of her devoted husband. Olivia stepped closer to the phone. You manipulated those images. A soft chuckle echoed. I didn't alter anything. I simply captured moments. Context is flexible. Daniel's hand curled into a fist. You've been stalking me. I prefer the term observing, Marcus replied. You see, when someone takes everything from you, you start paying attention. You destroyed your own position, Daniel said sharply. You made reckless decisions that would have ruined thousands of employees. Silence hummed for half a second. Then Marcus's tone shifted, colder. You humiliated me. You forced me out publicly. Investors sided with you. The press painted me as unstable. You were unstable, Daniel shot back. A sharp exhale on the other end. Let's see how stable your empire looks when rumors of infidelity hit the media. Investors are sensitive creatures. Olivia felt a flicker of fear, but she straightened her shoulders. You're not exposing truth, she said firmly. You're fabricating doubt. Marcus laughed softly. Doubt is powerful, Olivia. It only needs a seed. Daniel's mind sharpened. This wasn't just personal revenge. It was corporate sabotage. If even a whisper of scandal reached shareholders, stock prices could dip. Competitors could exploit uncertainty. Years of work could unravel. You won't win, Daniel said calmly. Because this time, I won't protect you from consequences. Oh, Marcus replied. And what will you do? Daniel ended the call. The silence that followed felt different now, not fearful, but resolute. Olivia looked at him. What's our next move? Daniel took a steady breath. Security first. I want every camera log reviewed. Every staff access record checked. If he's been inside this house, we'll know. Her eyes widened slightly. You think he's been here? He knew I was home early. Daniel's voice was firm. That information wasn't public. A wave of realization washed over them both. Someone had either leaked information, or Marcus had resources far deeper than they thought. Daniel reached for his desk phone and called his head of security immediately. Within minutes, instructions were issued: full perimeter sweep, cyber forensic analysis, phone trace, and immediate involvement of their legal team. Olivia watched him as he shifted into decisive leadership mode. This was the man who negotiated billion-dollar mergers without blinking. The man who could outmaneuver competitors twice his size. But when he hung up, his expression softened again. He stepped toward her and gently placed his hand over hers on her belly. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Not just for this. For the distance. For letting work create cracks that someone like him could exploit. Her eyes glistened, but this time, not with doubt. He didn't create the cracks, she said softly. He just tried to widen them. Daniel nodded. We'll close them, he said. Within hours, his legal team had traced the anonymous number to a disposable device linked to a private investigator previously hired by Marcus. Surveillance payments were uncovered. Security footage from a hotel confirmed Marcus's presence during at least 2 of the photographed trips. The evidence was mounting. By morning, Daniel had filed for a restraining order and initiated civil action for harassment and defamation. His board was informed before any rumor could spread. Transparency neutralized speculation before it could breathe. Marcus's leverage dissolved faster than he anticipated. That evening, when the house finally grew quiet again, Daniel walked into the nursery. Olivia stood by the crib, running her fingers along its edge. He wrapped his arms around her gently from behind. No more distance, he murmured. No more silence, she replied. Outside, the storm clouds had cleared. The sky glowed in warm hues of gold and rose, as if the world itself had exhaled. Daniel turned off his phone and placed it face down on the dresser. For the first time in a long while, his empire wasn't his priority, his family was.